In this screencast, I'm going to walk you through how to format the citations for your paper. Now, before we get started, make sure that you have out your source notes, have your whole research folder handy, and have opened up on screen both your paper and your formatted bibliography if it's in a separate file. Alright, so pause this now and make sure you have these things out. Now that you have these out, here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking this works cited list that you have, the one that we created using EasyBib, and you're going to convert this into sort of an answer key for creating your citations. Now, what you want to do is look up each of these sources in your source notes and check what the source number is. So for example, if this book by James Barter was source 1, you would simply put S1 before it. And then you'd look up Beale and place it a notation before that, etc. Once you've finished labeling all of these, you should have something that looks like this. Here you can see that each of our sources now has its number next to it. Keep in mind, each of you will have different source numbers because you did your research in different orders. Now that you have the source numbers on here, you can start to convert these into the proper format for your citations. Now, as a general rule of thumb, your citation is going to have in it whatever comes first in the entry. That's so that the reader can quickly find your source just by looking at your citation and then going to your works cited. So for example, James Barter's book here, if I want it to be a key for my citation, I'm just going to delete everything except his last name. And I'll do the same here, etc. Anybody who's got an author, any source with an author, you're going to delete everything except the last name. The one exception to this rule is when you have two sources by the same author, like we have here for source 15 and 14. For that, you have to give the reader enough information to know which of these two books you're talking about. So, here's what you're going to do. You can get rid of the first name, as we don't need that. There's nobody else in our bibliography who has the last name Hines. But then you have to leave the title, because that is what differentiates one source from the other. So I'm going to get rid of everything else. Now there's enough here to tell the reader which source is which. You can also truncate a long title. So right here we could cut it down to Life in the Middle Ages, or maybe even just Life. It's enough so that the reader will know which one we're talking about. Now, for sources that start with a title, that's all that you're going to leave there. Okay? You're going to leave the title intact because it's the very first thing in that entry, and delete the rest of it. So that'll be just enough for your reader to know what source you're talking about. When you finish making these adjustments, your works cited page that you've adjusted should look something like this. Here you can see it's sort of an answer key for all of your citations. You have your source number over here, and over here you have what those source numbers need to say in your parentheticals. Once you have a sheet that looks like this, you are ready to format the citations that are in your paper. So, you're going to want to click over to your paper now so that you can follow this next step. Here is someone's paper. Alright, this is one of their paragraphs, and you can see in here the various citations they have. Here's one that says S1, here's an S5, an S2. So I'll show you the basic way to change your citations to the right format. I'm going to scan down here, and I'm going to skip S1 for now. I'll explain later why, but don't start with S1 or S2. The next one I see is S5. So I look over here onto that sheet I've created, and I see S5 is Beal. So I'm going to copy that word there, Beal. Now I can go back over to my paper, go up here to Edit, Find and Replace, put in S5, and down here I'm going to put in Beal. And then I can just hit Replace All. In any place where source 5 was, it now is formatted properly. It has the parentheses, the name, no punctuation, and then the number. And then it closes the parentheses. So I know all of those are done correctly. Right, so now I'm going to scan down and see what else I can find and do the next one. And then you just work your way through all of the citations in that format, replacing the number with the S with an actual term that relates to your citations. So, why did I skip S1 and S2? Well, if you start by replacing S1 and you have 10 or more sources, it's going to create a problem in your paper. What will happen is the following. Let's say this source here was source 10, and I replaced S1 with Beal. Here's what it's going to look like. Alright, because it replaced S1, and it doesn't care there's a 0 after it. So that's why I'm saying replace source 1 and source 2 last. That way you're not going to accidentally change sources that you didn't mean to change. Also, there's one other area where doing this in Google Drive can be a little bit difficult. In Google Drive, you can't format something doing find and replace, and I'll show you what I mean. If we look back at our bibliography list, you'll see that there are some titles that need to be in italics. Like right here, S3 says The Surf in italics because it's a title. Now if I copy that, go back over here, and go Edit, Find and Replace, S3 with The Surf, notice it doesn't appear in italics here. So I can replace it, but I've lost my formatting. Now, there's a way to work around that. Here's what you need to do. Instead of going Find and Replace, you can just go Find. It'll light up any examples of that, highlight it here, and paste. And see, it keeps the formatting. Right? That way, you can quickly move through your paper and find all those examples just by going Next and moving from example to example, clicking on the actual number, and pasting that information in. All right? That'll allow you to have it formatted exactly the way you want it. The other way you could do it is by downloading your paper into Word, and then you're able to format in Word when you do a find and replace. And that is something I will show you how to do in another one of these videos. So good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.